it's 25 days until the upcoming election, the midterm elections. A lot of people interested in the outcome. None more than our next guest, who is Ed Gillespie. He wants to be the next senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia, running against Mark Warner. Ed Gillespie, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you.
At the Metro 29 Diner.
Great to be with you.
He's got a whole plate of bacon.
I know.
That's my appearance fee. I'm being paid in bacon today.
When he walked away, he doesn't know there's one less piece of bacon on his plate.
Did you take bacon from the next senator of Virginia?
I did. I couldn't resist. It was so good. It was so close.
Get ready for an audit if this guy wins.
And it smells so good.
All right.
So, Ed, look, seriously, you got 25 days. How do you think your campaign is going thus far?
Ryan, it's going great. We have momentum everywhere I go. We've closed this race, narrowed the gap in the public polls, and I can tell you that what I see on the ground is real enthusiasm and intensity. We are going to outwork Senator Warner. We won't outspend him, but we're going to outwork him. And everywhere I go, I can feel it. And it's we're going to surprise a lot of experts in 25 days, but we're not going to surprise a lot of folks in the Commonwealth of Virginia who have understood that this is a great opportunity for a win here.
All right, so you have gone up with ads in the Washington, D.C. area. You focused downstate at first, correct?
Well, I focused downstate at first, but there's also a math factor here, which is the Washington, D.C. market is the most expensive market in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, right.
Not in the Commonwealth, but that affects the Commonwealth. And, we went up there, I guess about 2 weeks ago now, and you can see it having an impact.
Now, that's the question. So once the ads go up in the Washington, D.C. area, then you go back and you do your polling. Are you seeing that that advertising is starting to have an impact?
Yeah, it's moving numbers. And the more people learn about the senator's record and the fact that despite saying he'd be an independent voice for us, he votes with President Obama 97% of the time, that he's voted for $7 trillion in new debt and nearly $1 trillion in tax increases, and didn't just vote for Obamacare after telling us he'd never vote for a health care reform bill that would mean losing our insurance if we wanted to keep it, but he worked to help pass it. They're open to hearing my positive agenda, and we put forward an economic growth agenda to create jobs and raise take-home pay, lift people out of poverty, hold down health care costs, and reduce energy prices, and that message is resonating everywhere.
The president earlier this week said that he's not on the ballot this November, but his policies are on the ballot. Is that how you're approaching this campaign?
Absolutely, and I mentioned this in the debate on, I lose track of days, but the other day, and noted that the president said this, and he said every single one of them, and when you vote with the president 97% of the time, Mark Warner's pretty much voted for every single one of them.
You said Obama, Warner, Obama, Warner, Obama, Warner. I'm pretty sure. If there was a drinking game and you had to take a shot of tequila every time Ed Gillespie said Obama, Warner, you would be on the floor. Obviously, this is part of the strategy. What's Mark Warner's response? Does
well,
he have
what
one?
I said was, the Obama-Warner policies, and those are, that's a fact. And his response is, I'm bipartisan, and as I noted, his press releases are very bipartisan, but his floor votes are very party line.
Talk about that a little bit, because the politicians are often accused of saying one thing and doing another. And this is a case where when he talks about his record, he sounds like the most moderate, bipartisan guy ever. But when you look actually at his votes, it is absolutely party line.
It is, and I just want to make sure that Virginians know that and give them the facts. Every time we talk about his votes, we cite the vote. I cited a number of instances the other night where there were bipartisan amendments. There was one to secure our border. It was offered in 2009. It would have secured the border by December of 2010 with a fence. 21 Democrats voted for it. Jim Webb was one of them, and Mark Warner voted against it, sided with Harry Reid against it. There was an amendment to lift the moratorium on drilling off our deep sea coast, and it had bipartisan support. Jim Webb voted for it. Mark Warner sided with Harry Reid to vote against it. There was an amendment that said that the EPA cannot regulate greenhouse gas and CO2 emissions, and that came to the floor, and Jim Webb voted for it, and Mark Warner voted against it. It's time after time after time, and it's not just the 97% number, it's what is underneath that.
Ed Gillespie is our guest. Of course, he's a Republican nominee for Senate in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I got to ask you, when you entered this race, I doubt you thought national security would be such a prominent issue, but it's certainly on everyone's mind right now. And talk to me about your plan for America's defense, what you would do representing Virginia, especially knowing how important a strong military parliamentary presence is to the voters of this state.
Well, and I spoke to George Mason yesterday about this, about national security, and the first thing we have to do is replace these reckless, arbitrary, and dangerous defense cuts that have been put in place by this administration with Mark Warner's support, voting for the Budget Control Act, which cut $486 billion from defense, and then slashing it again by another $500 billion through the sequester. And we need to replace that. The House of Representatives passed a bill to replace those defense cuts, and the Senate has not, and it never will as long as Harry Reid is the majority.
You're on board with the Paul Ryan budget that came out, and actually Patty Murray also worked with Paul Ryan on that budget. Are you on board with that budget?
Look, there's a lot of things in there I like. Obviously, the Senate never passed a budget, and
right.
That's one of the problems that we have. And so, if I get to the Senate, I won't just talk about these things. I will actually try to get these things done, including, by the way, balancing our budget, which the Senate has not done.
All right. So that nice Dana Perino,
yes,
who used to be the White House press spokesman during the Bush years, is now over on Fox News. I follow her on Twitter, and she has a nickname for you. She says you're the tortoise. She says you're like the tortoise in the hare. You are slow and steady, and you win the race, and you come up at the very end and surprise everyone.
Well, a couple things, and Dana and I worked together in the White House, and look, I think she's right. This has been a race where we have been building, and we have a great ground game. We call it the G-Force, and our G-Force is out in full force, knocking on doors and making phone calls, putting up yard signs. And Virginia, historically, you know this, Virginia breaks late, and
it does.
It's going to break late again this year. And I think that we have the organization, the message, and the environment to win this race.
But it is a significant gap. You've still got some room to go. How do you do that? How do you close it?
Quinnipiac has it at single digits. Mary Washington yesterday at 10, with Mark Warner stuck at 47%.
Not moving.
He's got 100% name ID, and a majority of Virginians are not saying they're going to vote for him, and a lot of them still haven't seen my ads or know more about me, but that's happening every day, and I am gaining on him every day. And we have come from 29 points down at the beginning of this race to 9 points down, according to Quinnipiac, while being outspent 3-1.
Yeah. And they always say that the undecideds will vote against the party in power in most cases.
That is the norm. They break against the incumbent, and I think that's certainly going to be the case this year because of the frustration and the disappointment in Senator Warner and his record, because a lot of people expected that he was going to be what he said he would be, and he's not, and that's why I have 78 of his former donors giving to me this year.
Really fast, we only have 30 seconds, but during this debate earlier this week, Senator Warner came out and criticized the president's strategy in Iraq, a strategy against ISIS, said that he didn't agree with it. Were you surprised that he reveals this at a debate rather than using the power of his office and actually do something about it as a senator?
Well, look, he'll look for any opportunity to try and distance himself from a president whose popularity has fallen, but that's not going to change his record of the past 6 years, and we can't afford 6 more years of the last 6 years, and that's what we'll get with Mark Warner.
All right, Ed Gillespie, thanks. Always good to see you. Always good to have you. And of course, the invitation is open to Senator Warner to come on down. In fact, we're here for another 45 minutes, Senator Warner.
If you want to
come on, there's bacon. You want to leave some bacon for Warner here? Or?
No.
Gillespie is eating all his